Just as global crises are trumpeted as reasons to centralize government power, the media also manipulates local events to serve that goal as well. Take, for example, the gun. It's what the media blames for an epidemic of violence in our own backyard. In almost every story having to do with violence, the presence of a gun is the villain. Tragedies such as the shootings at Columbine are exploited to convince the public that the gun itself is to be more feared than those misusing it.
The debate is just talk until gun violence happens to you.
Investigative Reports airs on the Arts and Entertainment Network. This news program represents one of the many media formats that routinely insinuate that because guns are available, there is violence.
Every 20 seconds, a handgun is manufactured in the United States. And every 2 minutes, another person is shot. Leaving us all to ask, when will the bloodshed end?
But the media does not blame gun manufacturers alone for the violence. All those who possess firearms must share in the guilt. Responsible gun owners and those using guns recklessly or to commit crimes are lumped together in a single group. Notice how Investigative Reports edits footage together to insinuate that hunters are linked to urban street violence.
There is a war on the streets that is killing our children.
Ultimately, the media supports a revolutionary campaign to abolish the right to keep and bear arms.
Further complicating the lives of police officers is a new issue, the arming of the general public. Gun violence has increased dramatically in every sector of our society, but most alarmingly, with children.
As a culture of violence persists, its backlash has teens caught in a crossfire.
With so many guns in the hands of mostly untrained civilians, officers have no idea what they might face when they respond to a call. It's a recipe for disaster.
The media's message is clear. Americans will be a lot better off without guns.
The expression gun control is dishonest because we're not talking about controlling guns so much as we're talking about controlling the law-abiding segment of our population. The defining characteristic of a criminal, after all, is that he does not obey the laws, and gun control laws are no exception. Anytime you have a measure which has the effect of disarming the law-abiding, you're giving criminals a competitive advantage over the law-abiding segment of our population. And the media doesn't display much, if any, interest in reporting what happens in those instances where criminals go into an encounter with a citizen with the serene confidence that the citizen has been disarmed. That's a story the media just does not want to tell.
The mainstream media continues to portray the arrest of Rodney King as a gang of racist police beating a black victim.
It began, as we remember, after white policemen were seen on videotape beating a black man named Rodney King.
4 white police officers in the beating of black motorist Rodney King.
Captured by chance on home video, the arrest quickly became a national sensation. In the months that followed, the establishment media hyped this local event to the point that many Americans considered it to represent police behavior nationwide.
This could be any one of 20 major cities or more in the country. It's a time bomb that's ticking under the foundations of America's major cities and under our country itself.
To curb police brutality across the nation.
The verdict of not guilty for King's arresting officers served as the match that lit the fuse. Instantly, the media implied that the jury was a bunch of redneck racists.
We do have
a society which is still racist.
A mostly white jury in rural Simi Valley cannot have any appreciation of what black people in south central Los Angeles go through when dealing with the Los Angeles Police Department.
There the man was on the ground, covering up toward the end, being beaten to insensitivity, and this all-white jury decided that the police were the good guys.
Yet the testimony of 58 witnesses and over 200 exhibits presented at the trial revealed to the jury much of what the media kept hidden. King attracted Highway Patrol attention because he was driving recklessly at speeds of up to 115 miles per hour. His arrest culminated an 8-mile chase in which he cut across numerous lanes of expressway traffic and ran red lights. King was a convicted felon, out on parole for armed robbery. There were 2 other black passengers in King's car, but they cooperated with the officers, were handcuffed, and later released without incident. King was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. King initially ignored police orders to step out of the car. When he did come out, he began acting erratically, dancing around. Then he shook his backside in a lewd gesture at a female police officer. Ignoring officers' demands to get down on the ground, King was tackled by 4 officers. He rose up and threw off the officers. An officer attempted to subdue King with a stun gun, but even the taser darts fired at King failed to keep this out-of-control 260-pound man down. At this point, the arrest was recorded on home video. Like the jury, you were about to witness the first few seconds that the media carefully avoided broadcasting. King is seen rising up and charging one of the arresting officers. The response of the officers is history. Although people may look at the same evidence and disagree with the verdict, the fact remains: the media withheld critical information from the American people in order to make the facts fit the story it wanted to tell. The story implies that local law enforcement is a failed institution and that radical changes are needed.
There's certainly nothing new about the drive to federalize control of local police. This is something that goes back decades. The major media have succeeded to a shocking extent in creating an impression for the general public that local police are not to be supported, not to be trusted, they are to be feared, and that, on the other hand, we can trust implicitly in the federal law enforcement agencies who will come into our communities and protect us against the local police. Local police exist to protect the rights and the liberties and the property of the law-abiding, and they are accountable to the communities that they serve. National police, on the other hand, would exist to protect the interests of the state and the political elite that controls the state.
The age-old tactics of revolutionaries is to orchestrate the illusion of popular support for their agendas. Media cooperation is essential to give life to the illusion.
We have had don't be fooled by the smoke and mirrors they use. The gun lobby is strong, they are organized, and they are scary. Enough of their tactics. They are buying votes with blood money.
Marketed as the Million Mom March, a publicity stunt created by gun disarmament advocates takes shape at the nation's capital.
Women and their families will push for gun safety in what they call the Million Mom March.
Weeks before the march actually took place, the media reports served as invitations for support and participation in the anti-gun agenda.
Dan, this Mom's March is going to bring enormous pressure on Congress.
Now to the emotional issue of gun control in the United States. The nation's capital is preparing for a demonstration against gun violence.
Organizing the ostensibly spontaneous march was Donna Dees Thomas's. Americans were told that Dees Thomas's was a mere suburban housewife and political novice who was shocked into action after watching the televised aftermath of a shooting at a daycare center. This portrayal of her background was repeated uniformly throughout the establishment media.
Women to watch: a suburban mother whose life has been changed by the gun debate, how she became a political activist, where that's led, That's a surprise to her friends and even to her. Here's NBC's Lisa Myers.
Donna Dees Thomas is a suburban mom, too busy with her 2 daughters and a part-time job to pay much attention to politics. Describes herself as apathetic.
No one ever turns out for rallies about gun control.
That's what you were told?
That's what I was told.
Undaunted, she decided to set up the march herself. What's the biggest thing you've ever organized before?
A carpool.